Have you ever stopped to wonder what it means to grow older with courage, wisdom, and a heart full of purpose? What happens when life's quiet moments stretch longer and you find yourself facing solitude, change, and the weight of years gone by? This video isn't just about aging. It's about embracing the beauty and challenges of life's later chapters and discovering how to live them with grace. Today, you'll meet Clara Bennett, a 65-year-old woman who has navigated the highs and lows of growing older, from the heartbreak of losing her closest friend to the joy of finding new meaning in unexpected places. Clara's story is deeply personal, yet it speaks to the universal experiences we all face as time moves forward. Why should you watch this video until the end? Because Clara's journey reflects the moments many of us will encounter as we age, moments of loss, reflection, and rediscovery. Through her story, you'll learn how to find strength in solitude, build new connections, and make peace with life's inevitable changes. You'll hear about the wisdom she gained from her friendship with Thomas, a man who entered her life when she needed it most, and how their bond helped her face the complexities of aging with resilience. Clara's story also touches on the tough choices seniors often face, like deciding whether to downsize or move to a community setting, and how to approach these decisions with clarity and confidence. By the end, you'll walk away with practical insights and inspiration to cherish the relationships that matter, embrace your independence, and live your later years with purpose, no matter what challenges come your way. If you're ready to be inspired, I invite you to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our videos. Your support means everything, and if you find this story meaningful, please like and share it to spread these lessons to others. If Clara's journey resonates with you, leave a 1 in the comments below. If not, drop a 0 and let me know how I can make these videos even better for you. Now, let's dive into Clara's story. I always pictured retirement as a time of freedom, a chance to savor the simple pleasures I'd worked so hard for. I'd planned it carefully, saving diligently, imagining days filled with gardening, reading, and maybe even traveling. But life, as it often does, had other plans. At 60, a health scare forced me to retire earlier than expected. Thankfully, my savings were enough to keep me afloat, and I was grateful for that. But there was something I hadn't anticipated: the silence that settled into my days like an uninvited guest. My daughter Sophie and my son Michael had their own lives now. Sophie was raising 2 energetic boys, and Michael was building his career across the country. I was so proud of them, but I missed the days when our home buzzed with their laughter, their arguments, their presence. 3 years ago, my dearest friend Ellen passed away after a sudden illness. Her loss left a void I couldn't fill, a quiet ache that lingered in every corner of my life. As the years passed, Sophie and Michael's visits became less frequent, their calls shorter. I understood they had responsibilities, families' dreams of their own. But that didn't make the loneliness any easier to bear. One morning, I sat at my kitchen table staring at a cup of tea gone cold. The house was so still I could hear the clock ticking in the living room. The rooms that once held so much life now felt like echoes of a past I couldn't reclaim. I felt a pang of sadness, a heaviness I couldn't shake. I'd always been strong, independent, but in that moment, I felt lost. As I sat there trying to push the feelings away, the phone rang. It was Sophie, her voice rushed. "Mom, I'm so sorry, but I can't make it over today. The kids have soccer and work's been crazy." "Are you okay?" I felt a twinge of disappointment, but forced a smile into my voice. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Don't worry about me. Go take care of your family." I hung up the silence louder than ever. I'd spent my life caring for others, but now in my quiet home, I wondered who was left to care for me. The next day, my neighbor Ruth stopped by. Ruth was about my age, and we'd always enjoyed chatting over coffee. But this time, there was a weight to her words. She sat across from me, her eyes scanning the empty chairs around my table. "It's just you here now, isn't it?" she said softly. I nodded, unsure what to say. It's the same for me. She continued, her voice tinged with a sadness I recognized. My kids are grown. My husband's gone. Sometimes I wonder what happens if I'm left completely alone. Her words hit me hard, like a truth I'd been avoiding. The thought of facing my later years with no one to share them with filled me with a quiet dread. What would I do if I was truly alone? The question lingered heavy and unanswered. A few days later, Michael called. He was checking in, but his tone was hurried, distracted. Mom, I'll try to visit soon, but things are hectic here. You're okay, right? I reassured him, but after we hung up, I felt the familiar ache return. I'd worked so hard to build a life for my family, but now with Ellen gone and my children living their own lives, I was left with a stillness I didn't know how to fill. I sat in my armchair staring out the window at the world moving on without me. The loneliness wasn't just in my home, it was in my bones. That weekend, Ruth invited me for a walk in the park. We sat on a bench watching families pass by their lives, a blur of motion. I turned to her, my heart heavy. You were right, I said, my voice thick. What you said about being alone, it's been on my mind. How do we manage at our age? Ruth nodded, her eyes kind. I've thought about it too, she said. We have to prepare now, Clara. We can't wait until it's too late. She spoke with a quiet strength. First, we need to make sure we're financially secure, enough to cover the basics, food bills, maybe health care. Without that, aging can be a struggle. I nodded. I'd always been careful with money, but her words made me think about the future in a new way. Medical costs, emergencies, the unexpected twists life might bring. Ruth continued, and with no one nearby, we have to take care of ourselves, stay active, stay connected. We can't let ourselves fade away. Her words struck a chord. For too long, I'd let routine define my day's meals. Alone evenings with the TV. I was existing, not living. The realization hit me hard. I couldn't keep going like this. My health, my happiness, my life depended on change. So I made a choice. I started small, walking to the park each morning, feeling the fresh air on my face. In the afternoons, I joined a book club at the community center. At first, I felt out of place, the weight of my loneliness pulling me back. But slowly, I made friends, people who shared my love of stories, who understood the quiet struggles of growing older. My life began to feel fuller, richer. Still, there were nights when the emptiness returned. Lying in bed, I'd stare at the ceiling, wondering who would be there if I fell ill, if I needed a hand to hold. The silence amplified my fears. I'd always been fine alone, but now I craved connection. Not someone to depend on, but someone to share the small moments, the joys and sorrows of these years. Yet the thought of seeking companionship felt like a betrayal of Ellen's memory. How could I open my heart again? The guilt was heavy, but so was the loneliness. One day I confided in Ruth. She listened quietly, her eyes warm with understanding. I felt the same after my husband passed, she said. But Clara, you're not replacing Ellen. You're just making room for new joy. You deserve that. Her words lifted a weight I hadn't realized I was carrying. I wasn't looking to fill Ellen's place. I was looking for someone to share the journey. That's when I met Thomas at the book club. He was 67, a retired teacher with a gentle smile and a passion for poetry. We bonded over our love of Maya Angelou and our shared experience of living far from our families. Thomas had lost his sister, his closest confidant, a few years earlier, and he understood the ache of absence. Our friendship grew naturally. We'd meet for coffee, discuss books, take walks by the lake. Thomas had a quiet enthusiasm for life that reminded me of what I'd been missing. He'd point out the way the sunlight danced on the water or share a poem that made my heart swell. His presence brought warmth back into my days, and our conversations, filled with laughter, stories, and shared silences, became my favorite part of the week. Over time, we started doing more together, cooking simple meals, visiting local museums, sitting on my porch watching the sunset. We never defined our bond, but we didn't need to. Thomas was my companion, and my home, once so quiet, was alive again with connection. One evening I caught a bad cold that left me weak and feverish. Thomas was there in an instant, bringing soup and a thermometer, his concern evident in every gesture. He called Sophie, insisting she check on me. When Sophie arrived, she was surprised to see Thomas so attentive. "Mom, I had no idea you had such a good friend," she said, her eyes soft. I smiled weakly. "I didn't want to worry you, Sophie. Thomas has been a blessing." Sophie took me to the doctor, and though it was just a cold, Thomas's care made all the difference. That night, as I rested, I realized my home wasn't just a house anymore. It was a place of love, care, and companionship. Thomas hadn't replaced Ellen, but he'd brought a new kind of light into my life, one that felt steady and true. But life, as always, brings change. One day, Thomas got a call from his daughter, who lived halfway across the country. She was expecting her first child and wanted him to move closer to be part of their lives. When he told me, my heart sank, but I hid my sadness behind a smile. "That's wonderful, Thomas," I said. "A grandchild is such a gift." But his eyes held uncertainty. "Clara, I've come to love our time together," he said softly. "Leaving feels harder than I expected." His words broke my heart. Our quiet routines, our shared moments, they'd become a lifeline for us both. But I knew what I had to do. Taking a deep breath, I steadied my voice. "Thomas, your daughter needs you. That's where you belong. I'll be okay here." Inside, I felt a familiar ache, but I wanted him to go with peace. After days of reflection, Thomas decided to move. I drove him to the train station, my heart a mix of gratitude and sorrow. As the train pulled away, I stood there, the world suddenly quieter. Back home, the silence was overwhelming, a reminder of the solitude I'd fought so hard to escape. I missed Thomas's laughter, his gentle presence, but I also knew I couldn't let this loss define me. I kept up my routines, walking, reading, meeting friends at the book club. Sophie and Michael called often, but their lives were full, and I didn't want to lean too heavily on them. One afternoon at the community center, I overheard a group discussing assisted living communities. The idea struck me not as a defeat, but as a possibility. Maybe a place with others my age could offer the connection I craved. I called Sophie, nervous but resolute. "Mom, are you sure?" she asked, her voice laced with worry. "Those places can feel so impersonal," I reassured her. "Sophie, it's not about giving up. It's about finding a place where I can thrive, where I'm not so alone. You and Michael have your lives, and I want to live mine fully." A week later, Sophie and Michael visited, their faces etched with concern. "Mom, we just want you to be happy," Michael said. "If this is what you want, we'll support you." Their love warmed me, but I stood firm. "I've thought it through," I said. "I want a place where I can build a new chapter, where I'm surrounded by people. It's not perfect, but it's better than this quiet house." They nodded, and I felt a wave of relief. I wasn't alone in this choice. 3 months later, I moved into a vibrant assisted living community just outside town. It had bright common areas, a small library, and gardens bursting with color. On my first day, I met Lillian, a longtime resident with a wicked sense of humor. She showed me around, introducing me to others who welcomed me warmly. That night, lying in my new bed, I felt a quiet calm. This wasn't the life I'd planned, but it was a new beginning. I'd made friends, and the promise of companionship eased the loneliness I'd carried for so long. 6 months in, I found a rhythm yoga classes, book discussions, evening card games. The crushing solitude was gone, replaced by a sense of belonging. Sophie and Michael visited when they could, their worry easing as they saw me thrive. "Mom, you seem happy," Sophie said one day, her smile genuine. I nodded. "I am, Sophie. I've found my place. I'd learned to embrace solitude not as loneliness, but as a space for growth. I was living, truly living, and for the first time in years, I felt hope. But life's lessons never stop. One morning, I got a call from Michael, his voice trembling. Mom Lillian had a fall. She's in the hospital. The news hit me like a wave. Lillian, with her laughter and warmth, had become a dear friend. I rushed to the hospital, my heart racing. Sophie and Michael were there, their faces grim. The doctors are trying, Mom, Michael said, but it's serious. I sat by Lillian's bedside, holding her hand, her once vibrant face pale and still. Lillian, you've got to pull through, I whispered, tears falling. We have more games to play, more stories to share. For a moment, her eyes fluttered open. She squeezed my hand weakly, her voice barely audible. Clara, keep living, for both of us. Then, with a soft sigh, she was gone. The pain was sharp, a reminder of Ellen, of Thomas, of all I'd lost. I sat there numb as Sophie and Michael tried to comfort me. Mom, we're here, Sophie said, her voice breaking. I nodded, but the grief was mine to carry. Lillian's loss left a hole, but her words stayed with me. Keep living. Back at the community, the days felt emptier without her. Friends offered kind words, but the sorrow lingered. One evening, Sophie visited, her eyes full of concern. Mom, I hate seeing you like this. Lillian wouldn't want you to stay sad. Her words echoed Thomas's, Ruth's, all those who'd urged me forward. Sophie, I said, my voice steady. I'm grieving because I loved her, but I'm not giving up. I've learned to keep going no matter what. She hugged me, and in her embrace, I felt the strength of our bond. One day, walking through the garden, I saw a new resident, an older man sitting alone, his eyes heavy with loss. I recognized that look. It was me years ago. I approached him gently. Are you new here? I asked. Would you like to join me for a walk? He looked up, and though he didn't speak, his eyes held gratitude. We walked in silence, the quiet a bridge between us. In that moment, I felt Lillian's presence, her voice, urging me to connect, to live. That night, lying in bed, I thought of Lillian, Ellen, Thomas, all the souls who'd shaped me. Their love, their lessons were part of me, a light that no darkness could dim. The loneliness was still there, but it was softer now, tempered by the connections I'd built. I'd learned that aging isn't about avoiding loss. It's about embracing the love that remains, the strength within, and the courage to keep moving forward. Lillian's greatest gift was teaching me to cherish every moment, every bond, no matter how fleeting. Relationships with family, friends, even strangers, are the threads that weave our lives together. They give us purpose, comfort, and joy, even when the world feels heavy. Standing in the garden the next morning, the sun warm on my face, I felt a quiet truth settle in. Nothing lasts forever, but the love we share endures. It's our strength, our guide, our legacy. The writer Maya Angelou once said, "You may encounter many defeats, but you must not be defeated." Aging is full of challenges. Loss changed the weight of time, but it's also full of beauty. We age not slowly, but in moments, in the blink of an eye. One day, you notice the lines on your face, the ache in your joints, and you realize youth is behind you. It's not something to fear, but to embrace. The world may see you differently, call you ma'am or sir, but you know the truth. You are more than your years. You are the sum of your loves, your losses, your courage. Aging isn't easy. There are moments when the silence feels too loud, when the losses pile up, when you wonder if anyone truly sees you. But in that silence, you find yourself. You learn to trust your heart, to carry your grief with grace, to seek joy in the small things. A kind word, a shared laugh, a quiet walk. You realize that solitude isn't loneliness. It's a space to grow, to reflect, to become more than you ever thought possible. As I've grown older, I've learned that love isn't just the grand gestures or lifelong promises. It's the fleeting moments, the coffee shared with a friend, the smile of a stranger, the warmth of a child's hug. These moments fade, but their impact lingers, shaping us in ways we can't always see. Life changes. People drift, memories soften, but the love we give and receive remains. It's what keeps us grounded, what makes us whole. I've also learned to guard my heart not out of fear, but out of self-respect. We give so much to others, but we must save some kindness for ourselves. Disappointment is part of life. People will let you down, and you'll let yourself down. But that's okay. It's a reminder that you're still here, still hoping, still growing. The key is balance hope fiercely, but accept what you can't change. Let go of what weighs you down and carry forward with grace. In the end, the greatest lesson is this: you are enough. When the world feels uncertain, when loss feels too heavy, you have the strength within you to rise. Rely on yourself, not because you have to, but because you can. Your heart, your wisdom, your courage, they are your greatest gifts. As I reflect on Clara's journey, I'm reminded that aging is a gift, a chance to live fully, to love deeply, to become more with every passing day. What lesson from Clara's story resonates with you? Maybe it's the courage to seek connection, the strength to embrace change, or the wisdom to cherish every moment. Share one thing you've learned and how you'll carry it forward in the comments below. Your thoughts could inspire someone else on this journey. If this video touched you, please leave a 3 in the comments, like, share, and subscribe to join our community. Thank you for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.